Hello, my name is Andrew and I love to make monsters. Recently, I was challenged by the amazing AceofClay to make a very large, detailed sculpture, which I thought was a little bit random, but I thought, hey, this seems like a good opportunity to really push myself. Sometimes I get kind of on a mental self-imposed deadline. I want to get a video out, or I want to get this project done by this so I can start on this. And I thought, hey, I'm just going to make this project bigger than any other project I've ever done, put as much detail into it, and just take my time with it. So in today's video, I'm going to start on a very large dragon. We'll get started right after this. Remember, never stop creating. To start things off, I'm going to build an armature out of some pretty heavy wire and some foil. Now, when I do an armature for a creature or sculpt like this, I want to make sure that the limbs are all the same size. Like 2 back legs are the same size, 2 front legs, blah, blah, blah. So I try to mark those out on the wire as I'm building it, so I can bend that where the natural bends would be for like knees, hands, stuff like that. Normally this works pretty well, but it's not flawless because sometimes it just doesn't work out quite right. With the armature all done, I'm going to start softening up my clay. I did have some Super Sculpey medium left over from a previous project, and I bought some regular Super Sculpey and Super Sculpey firm. So I started with the Super Sculpey firm, which I realized was a mistake. This stuff is super rough, but later I mixed it with the medium and had much better luck. Now I'm just going to mark some holes for the wings, and we're going to bake it according to package instructions. Now that the base body is baked, I'm going to set that aside and do the base for the head. Pretty happy with how that looks. I want her looking down, kind of getting ready to attack a foe. Now I'm going to make a bunch of little pokey bits. These are going to be spikes for her back, teeth, claws, all that jazz. So I'm going to bake that with the head according to package instructions. Now to make the wings, I'll do it very similar. I'm going to make 2 matching wings or wing frames. So I'll do basically this would be the skeleton of the wing. So I've got the little, main part. I don't know wing anatomy. The webbing will come later. So now I'm going to add some black Premo Sculpey. My thought process on this is so I wouldn't have to paint the wings a base coat. I could just dry brush a color over them, but that didn't exactly work out. We'll get to that a little bit later. Now to start covering the body with some Super Sculpey. What I'm doing here is doing the underbelly. I'm going to do these like plates. I'm going to go all along the belly and up through the neck. And then I'm going to add this texture with my ball tool. And then I want it to look like she's been through some stuff, so I'm adding some little cracks and scratches to it. I looked at several pictures of dragons online, and a lot of them would have kind of a spiky back. I know there's no right or wrong with dragons, but I really liked the spikes on the back, so I decided to make her a bunch of spikes to put on her back. So here's all the ones I'm going to bake. I was going to put her on a base, so I did drill holes, and as I was trying to line her up, you can see I kind of cracked the legs. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do with this sculpture in the future. So I decided to cut off the extra wire that was poking out and just sculpt her feet flat so she could sit on any surface, and maybe later I'll do a diorama scene with some other sculptures, or I won't. Those are the 2 options. Now, I had shared this sculpture with some artist friends, and one of them pointed out that they thought her right front leg, front arm, was a little bit long, and so I kind of measured it, and he was correct. And it stood out after he said that, so I went ahead and measured it and trimmed it. Now I'm adding some liquid clay adhesive, covering the sculpt with that so I can add her layer of skin. So I did this also on those plates earlier. Now I'm just going to get her all covered with some Super Sculpey. And as I cover it, I will smooth it in, blend it with each other. But once I get a good section of it done, I'm going to go ahead and add a texture. So I did make my own texture tool for this sculpture, and I thought this would work better than trying to come up with my own, like just carving in scales or making scales, which sounds ridiculous. So this worked out really well. Now I'm just doing indentions for the plates on the back. As you can see here, I've kind of jumped ahead because it was the same process for all that. I also did her tail. Now I'm adding some creases around her joints, and I thought her thighs looked too thin. She needed to be, more muscular. So I'm gonna bulk this up, smooth it in, and texture it just like I did before. Now to make her little toesies, I want her to have 3 toesies in the front and 1 in the back. To help with balance. That also give me more of a hand shape that I can use on her right front leg. With the toes shaped out, I just use my ball tool to make an indentation, add some liquid clay adhesive, and stick those into the hole. Add some more detail to the foot, and then I'll bake all this, kind of save my progress. Now we're gonna jump over to the wings. One thing I didn't want to do was add clay to the wings like I did with the body because I didn't want to add more weight. I went ahead and trimmed these wings up to give them their own texture. They're a little bit rough, so I wanted to sand them. And now you can see here, the black isn't really as black as it was before. So I'll have to do something about that later, but I'm gonna need to make some little sockets for these to key into. So I'm using my Super Sculpey to make these little wing shoulder thingy dingies. Made some foil to stick in there so I could texture it, because if I put the wing in there, I'd have to support it the whole time. And this foil will give me a surface I can press against. Here you can see the body and the wings are all sculpted. Now I'm going to add a base coat of black to the wings. Also, I had a few spikes break, so now I'm breaking them off farther to make it look intentional, like she has some battle damage. Now on to the painting process of the body. I'm just giving her a black base coat. Then I will dry brush some green on there. I want that to be her main color. To make the wings kind of match, I'm going to dry brush that same green on those. And for her belly, I wanted to go with a gold, so I've got a couple different gold colors. This darker one I'm using for my first coat, just dry brushing that on all the plates underneath. Her claws, I'm going to use this pale yellow. And for her back dorsal plates, fins, spikes, whatever they are, I'm going to dry brush this gray on there, just because I didn't want them to be solid black, but I like them dark. Now I'm going back over the belly with a lighter iridescent gold. And I thought the body was too bleh, like just a solid green, so I thought it would be fun to kind of break that up and make some little gold scales in just random spots. I like to kind of do a cluster of a couple of them at least. So I'm obviously jumping around a lot on this project, but I've got that set aside to dry, so now I'm going to finish sculpting the head. I'm starting off with doing the tongue, the gums, and adding the pre-baked teeth. I also made these pre-baked eyes, but they're a little bit too ball-shaped because I don't have indentions in this head that I've already made. So I'm going to kind of cut them in half so they'll give me more of like a cabochon type shape. And I'll do the same thing, add some liquid clay adhesive, stick that on, and then kind of make these little eyelids that go around just to help hold that eye in place, smooth that into the base of my head. I'm going to go ahead and bake that according to package instructions. Now to jump back to the wings. I had a couple different ideas for this, but this is my second attempt. I tried clear Worbla the first time and that didn't work. So now I am trying Worbla Deco Art. I've used this in several other projects. I really like it. So it's a kind of a clear, translucent product. You heat it up, be very careful, it gets very hot. You know, I use parchment paper so it doesn't stick to anything. I can use my ball tool to roll it flatter, and I just kept working on it. So I'd have these clear wings with these different textures and holes in them, and then I just heated it up and smushed it into the painted clay, and it worked really well to adhere it. You can see here I have my two finished wings. To give you an idea, the first wing took 3 hours to do the webbing and the second one took 2 hours. So I did get faster at it, but it is still a very slow process because you have to heat it up and let it cool. To paint the wings, I'm just going to finger paint them the same color green. Wipe it off with a wet paper towel so it gets on all the crevices, and I did this on both sides to all 6 sections, and it really did a good job of making these translucent green wings. I did make a different texture tool for the head so I could have some smaller bumps on it, just thought it would transition better. Now I'm going to finish sculpting out all the head details. I decided I wanted to add a little bit of battle damage to the head, so I added this scar over this eye. Now I'm just going to paint it the same way I painted the body with the base coat of black, dry brush the green, and now I'm going to dry brush gold onto these little spiky plates that are sticking out. Now I'll just paint all the details on the inside of the mouth. With the mouth mostly painted, I wanted to go ahead and add some other little details to it. So I'm using some that gold paint to add some little spots. The last thing I want to paint on the mouth is I want to dry brush some white over the teeth. So I want them to look a little bit different than the claws because I use the same pale yellow, but by dry brushing the white, lightens them up a little bit and gives them a little more contrast with everything. Now to paint both of her eyes. And my final step in the painting is to give it a brown wash, and I mixed some water and paint together and made a total mess. Luckily it didn't get on my sculpt and I could still use it, so I just dirtied up the mouth and dirtied up her claws. With that all dry, I'm going to go ahead and add some UV resin. I wanted to make her claws, mouth, and eyes shiny, and I love UV resin for that. I feel like it adds even more shininess than a gloss coat. Plus you can put it on thicker, so if you want it over eyes, it'll actually, to me it gives a thicker look to it. Last step is to put her all together. I did have some issues with the wings going into those sockets that I had made, and I didn't want to break anything, so I carved some clay off of those wings and then glued them and locked them in place, and I glued the head in place. Say it with me. And she is done. The dragon is complete. Let me know what you think of her in the comments. Wait, that's not what I usually say, is it? I know. Let's take a look at the finished sculpt. I think that's right. Since this was such a big project for me, it is the most time-consuming project I've ever done. There was a lot of let's try this and see if it works type of thing. I wanted to share some stats about this dragon, so I will throw those up on the screen now. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a like. And definitely, if you are not familiar with AceofClay, most likely you are if you're watching this video, but if you're not, be sure to check out his channel. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. If you want to learn how to make your own clay monsters, be sure to check out my bite-sized tutorial playlist. Or if you just want to see one of my other videos, be sure to check out whatever YouTube's showing you right now here in this top box. All right, well, thanks for watching, and remember, never stop creating. Bye.